Welcome to episode 12, 1981. We are now a full decade in. Tupac is 10, Biggie is 9, Nas is 8, Jay-Z is 12, Jonathan Lippy is between 2 and 3 years old. This journey has been enlightening and empowering thus far. And let's see all the things that have taken place. This is a recap of what we learned. In 1971 was the birth of Tupac. 1972, the birth of Biggie. 73, the birth of Nas. 74 was the Jay-Z introduction and an intro to the occult secret societies. 1975, intro to Satanism. 76, intro to Freemasonry. 1977, intro to conspiracy theory and Dame Dash. 1978, the origin of the Nas Illmatic album cover. 79, intro to the New World Order and the birth of hip-hop. And 1980, intro to Rastafari, CIA destabilization campaigns, and the October surprise. Seems like I made that up, huh? Feels like I just made that up, but that's exactly what we've encountered on our journey, and the information now swirls about within our collective consciousness. Don't talk about the illegal activity! I've received caution about discussing the illegal activity that takes place in the upcoming chapters. But when I looked it all up, I saw that the New York Times ran an article that Jay-Z says in his book Decoded that he shot his brother at age 12 and that his brother never pressed charges. Mutulu Shakur is in prison for the activities described in the chapter. So I don't think there's any concern to get our panties in a bunch here. This all seems to be public information. Sanguineous. Sanguineous means blood red, or relating to or involving bloodshed, or containing blood. Yeah, somebody cueing Wishbone featuring Unforgiven, Somebody's Gonna Die Tonight. Say yeah, somebody gonna die tonight, gonna die tonight. Characters. Yosef. Yosef can be translated to Joseph, and it would make sense that Afeni is named Marion, for that if Yosef is Mutulu Shakur and Marion is Afeni, you have Joseph and Mary, whose son is Jesus, and Makavelli is depicted as Jesus on the cross on the Don Illuminati 7-Day Theory album cover. Felix RONALDO Barbosa. Is he from Madrid? Is he 25, 30 years old? Nobody knows. He's a hitman killer, a.k.a. the Barbarian, a.k.a. the Cat. If you look it up, there is a Thread the Barbarian comic that came out in 1981, of which I think there is absolutely no correlation for, but there it is. Carlos Brigante, El Cartel de Medellin. Is this Al Pacino in Carlito's Way? Because the character in Carlito's Way was named Carlito Brigante. Carlos, Carlito, I don't know, could be. But Carlito's Way, the movie, came out in 1993. When I think of Carlito's Way, I always think of Ill Al Scratch on their song, Where My Homies. Doing it out the Carlito's Way. Javier, the bouncer. Rodney, the banker. The traitor. The girls. The Primera Clase Cartel. Marcy. Regine, possibly pronounced Rajan, not sure. Theo. Charles, Chaz. Pedro. Tijuana, Mexico. This scene depicted the Yosef Mutulu Shakur characterization. Mentioned that he was bilingual in English and Spanish and well liked. He receives 2 letters. One is a letter from Marion Afeni outlining the hardships that they were facing in New York. The other is a letter from Felix RONALDO Barbosa. Later on, Felix invites Yosef on a plot for a bank heist, which ultimately seemed to be a heist on like an armored Brinks truck. Mutulu Shakur. This is from Wikipedia. Mutulu Shakur, born Gerald Wayne Williams, August 8, 1950, is an American black nationalist and acupuncturist. He was a proponent of the Republic of New Africa and a close friend of Geronimo Pratt. Shakur is best known for his conviction on racketeering charges following the 1979 prison escape of Joanne Chesimard, Assata Shakur, and the infamous $1.6 million robbery of a Brinks armored truck in New York in which a guard and 2 police officers were killed. He is currently incarcerated in the United States Penitentiary at Victorville in Adelanto, California, for the conspiracy to aid banks expropriation, not the actual robbery. He is also the stepfather of deceased rapper Tupac Shakur. Felix Ronaldo Barbosa. Felix had a cool line that he told Mutulu about Rodney the banker from Tucson. His kind has eyes like the owl. They can see in the dark. Felix has Yosef Mutulu look after his women while Mutulu awaits the arrival of the Primera Clase cartel. They arrive and the girls bring them to room 112, and Felix gets the keys from Yosef Mutulu to the room and kills the boss of the Primera Clase cartel, leaves the room, and then recruits the remaining people to join him. Felix gives Yosef Mutulu $1,000 and leaves and says they will meet again. Yosef Mutulu reads his second letter, the one from Felix, and it mentions for Yosef to wait up for him. Room 112. The book mentions the hotel room Yosef gives Felix the keys to is room 112. The group 112 was on Bad Boy Records, and I believe their second album was called Room 112. I'm not sure what the correlation is, but I remember in college when the album came out, people used to say that it had a special meaning. There was a song by 112 with Biggie called Only You, and it mentions to bring 4 friends. I'm assuming that refers to some form of sexual innuendo versus any kind of occult meaning. However, there may be a double meaning, and if you know it, please enlighten us. The Lone Gunman. The Controversy Daily headline: President signs Gun Control Act. John Lennon murdered by lone gunman Mark David Chapman, who was controlled by voices in his head that controlled and instructed him. Manchurian Candidate, MK Ultra style, Sirhan, were the voices associated with world visions. The Lone Gunman, Catcher in the Rye connection. These are some lone gunmen: Robert John Bardo, Lee Harvey Oswald, Mark David Chapman, Jack Ruby, who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, John Hinckley Jr., James Earl Ray, Sirhan, Mehmet Ali Agha. These are the people that were shot: John Lennon, Ronald Reagan, Bobby Kennedy, Madonna, Martin Luther King, Jodie Foster, JFK, Rebecca Schaeffer, Pope John Paul II. The Hinckley Bush Sr. connection. World Visions was a Protestant religious group that on their board of directors sat lone gunman John Hinckley Jr. This is interesting because John Hinckley Sr. was the CEO of oil exploration company Vanderbilt Energy Corp. And was a longtime close business and personal relationship with another oilman, George H.W. Bush, the vice president. The reason this is interesting is because on March 31st, 1981, just days after being sworn into office, Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley Jr. Dum, dum, dum. But seriously, what the heck is that all about? And why Jodie Foster? The public version is that he was doing it to impress Jodie Foster. I thought Ronald Reagan was pretty cool when they asked him about how he felt about the doctors, and he says, I just hope they're Republican. You know, consider how strange it must have been for Ronald Reagan that he gets elected, the October surprise happens, someone shoots him, and you know, he's got to have heard that there was a Hinckley-Bush connection, and there he sat for 8 years with the dude that had someone try to smoke him. I mean, allegedly. We don't know for sure, but, you know, if these allegations are true, that must have been a spooky 8 years. Kennedy assassination. Critics dismiss the magic bullet. In fact, do you know anybody, seriously, like in your own life, do you know anybody that actually believes the Warren Commission? Anybody? Because that would be more of an interesting person to speak to than a conspiracy theorist. Somebody that actually believes the mainstream version of that reality. It points fingers at the Mafia-CIA connection. Kennedy was opposed to the actions of the Federal Reserve Bank, and that led to opposition with the insiders, the CFR, and backers in the CIA. Kennedy had signed a bill that would issue more than $4 billion in United States notes through the U.S. Treasury and not the Federal Reserve. So there's a difference there. Just in case you're not into this, I guess, gold and silver, libertarian, Austrian School of Economics background, your dollars are called Federal Reserve notes. Kennedy was saying he was going to make a United States note. Now, money before 1971 was actually backed by gold and silver. And there, if you look it up on Google, you'll find that dollars used to say that this is redeemable for either gold or silver, whether you had a gold certificate or a silver certificate. Another line that is in the conspiracy Austrian School of Economics is that the Federal Reserve is not federal and it's not a reserve. It's an independent corporation. And it has no oversight. No one can tell it what to do. It's above the law. It's outside of law. Congress has no control over it. Yada, yada. Ron Paul wanted to audit the Fed. Actually, initially he called it end the Fed, but that was too radical, so they changed it to audit the Fed. The effect of this would reduce the United States national debt by avoiding paying interest on borrowed money from their bank. The Hidden Hand, the Unseen Hand book suggests that all of American history is the people versus central banking. All money is borrowed into existence. Your money says for all debts, public and private. The Bay of Pigs, aka Operation Zapata. Named this because it was launched from an island owned by a newly formed company, Zapata Oil, owned by George H.W. Bush. The Barbara and the Houston were the names of the two vessels used in the operation. The Barbara would be for Barbara Bush, and Houston would be for Houston, Texas, where they were living. You could research James Parrott for the JFK Bush connection. There is a declassified document that says that George Bush phoned in a phone call informing that James Parrott had been making claims that he was going to shoot the president, but he wanted to remain anonymous on his reporting. I don't know the full conspiracy behind this, but I've always heard this for like the past 20 years, that there's a Bush-JFK connection. Mamer Ali Aka shot Pope John Paul II. Was the Russian secret police behind it? KGB gained intelligence confirming the Vatican, the CIA, La Cosa Nostra, and members of Italy's P2 Masonic Lodge were in talks to form a holy alliance in order to bring about the fall of communism. In the designs of Providence, there are no mere coincidences. Pope John Paul II. NYMP, a young Jay-Z trying to hook up on the dance floor with Regine and gets punked by Everett, and then they get into a fight. Jay-Z threatens Everett to not fight with him anymore, or else there'll be consequences, or that he was serious about it. There was then a scene about Everett, JL, and Diane. Diane mentions to Everett that Jay-Z, A.D., Seth, has demons in him and asks Everett to help him. A.D. and Theo return, and A.D., Jay-Z, gets in a fight with Everett again. A.D. pulls out a .22 caliber gun and shoots Everett in the shoulder. When A.D. goes to holster the gun or pocket it, it burns his waist because the barrel, I guess, was still hot, and it burns A.D.'s waist with the mark of Cain when he tucks it in. He and Theo run away to Chaz's house. And this made me wonder about his name being Seth Smarter. Initially, in a past episode, I said that Seth Smarter was a play on word for Sean Carter. But Seth is Adam and Eve's third child. So I don't know how the religious connection, Seth Smarter, Sean Carter, Seth, the third child of Adam and Eve, and then he gets the mark of Cain by shooting his brother. And also, again, this is supposedly in the Decoded book by Jay-Z. I guess it's an autobiography. And the New York Times reported it. So there's no concern that we discussed it here. Tijuana, Mexico. Yosef meets a shaman on the way to pull the bank heist. Felix and Pedro attempt the bank robbery, or the robbery on the Brinks truck, and it fails. Felix hops in Yosef's getaway car and dies on the getaway. Yosef buries Felix somewhere in the desert. Cultural references. Dog tag with Carpe Diem on it. Carpe Diem means seize the day, seize the moment. The Titty Bar. Beef Eater Gin. Polaroid Pictures. Pablo Escobar and the Medellin. Maxcal de Oaxaca. Room 112. Geronimo. Range Rover. Jeep. Bohemia. The Isley Brothers. Atlantis. The Deal. Stephanie Mills. Silks Call Me. The SOS Band. Billy D. Williams. Average White Band. Schoolboy Crush. Calvin Klein Pants. One Way, if you play your cards right. Polo Cologne. Get High So High. That's another Cypress Hill reference, unless that's an old song. Get High So High. Easy Like Sunday Morning. Easy Like Sunday Morning. The D.O.C. discovery. Last episode, I mentioned the D.O.C. when discussing King of Kings, Lord of Lords. vMurder33 researched and found the song The Secret Plan on the Helter Skelter album. The lyrics to the song relate to the chapters in the White Book. The D.O.C. needs to be further investigated here because he seems to be playing with the 7-day theory. I'll explain why in a couple of seconds. But he was a member of Ruthless Records and Death Row Records. He wrote parts of NWA, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg Doggy Style albums. He was in a severe car accident and lost his voice when his larynx was crushed. It was almost like a ghoul took it from him. He fell asleep at the wheel. Now here's the 7-day theory connection. All 3 of his albums are all 7 years apart from each other. 1989, he came out with No One Can Do It Better. In 1996, Helter Skelter came out. And that was all, 96 is also the death of Tupac, Enter Makaveli. Exit Tupac, Enter Makaveli. And then 7 years later, in 2003, he released an album called Deuce. And he's had a child with Erykah Badu. Helter Skelter. So what's behind this Helter Skelter? We got D.O.C. We got references to it in the White Book. So Charles Manson and the Beatles were mentioned in previous chapters also. The Beatles made a song called Helter Skelter, and it was about an amusement park ride. There was also the 1975 Splendor Jay-Z Led Zeppelin chapter, where they're in a theme park, or an amusement park, and it's called Paradise City. It seems like that might be connected to Helter Skelter. Not sure. I found online that Charles Manson had a belief that the world would end with a race war between blacks and whites, where the blacks would kill all of the whites except for Manson and his family, who would be hiding in the bottomless pit by then. Manson states that the problem, I don't even want to read this part because it's just not right to say, but it says that the problem with blacks in control is that they wouldn't know what to do because all they've ever known how to do is what Whitey told them to do. So they would seek out Charles Manson in the bottomless pit and make him king of the world. I always wondered why Charles Manson was so popular. And now I know why people always say Helter Skelter when race problems take place on TV. I didn't know. I didn't know till I read this here. And now I know. That's the magic of the White Book. So where's the Tupac? Where, oh, where is the Tupac? Who cares? We're over 100 pages into this book. And at this point, Tupac has been referenced in a sentence or a paragraph only 3 to 4 times so far in a book that we all thought going in was primarily about Tupac. It's been more about Jay-Z and Nas than Tupac so far. They've had entire chapters. But you know what's amazing about this? I bet nobody reading is even the least bit upset about it. Now that's saying something. Came in for some Tupac, then you got some Conspiracy 101. Actually, this is like Conspiracy 201. This is I'm learning things I haven't learned before. And I'm a lifetime tinfoil man. The White Book on Amazon ranking. As of me writing this, the White Book was ranked number 47,941 in all books on Amazon.com. And that's incredible. I mean, when you consider how many books have been written all time, I'm pretty sure this audience for the White Book videos has something to do with that. To give a comparison, the highest my book, Simulation Theory, was ever ranked was somewhere in the high 300,000s, and I was advertising for it. Right now, Simulation Theory is ranked at 1.3 million. So that's a pretty big accomplishment to have the White Book, a book that came out in 2007, which was the same year Simulation Theory came out, to be ranked in the top 50,000 books of all books for sale at 47,941. That's something. I got a picture right there so you can see it. Amazon bestsellers ranked 47,941. It's incredible. Now let's compare this to some other Tupac books, mainstream ones. So as we compare to mainstream Tupac books, we could see The Rose That Grew from Concrete is ranked number 3,383 in all books and number 13 in hip-hop books, followed by Decoded, a book by Jay-Z about Jay-Z, at number 14. If the White Book could get a sub-classification into hip-hop books, it could rank even higher. Tupac Shakur, the Life and Times book, is ranked at number 19 in hip-hop. The book, simply titled Tupac, is ranked 98,979 in all books, but number 31 in hip-hop. Consider that, so we could presume, based on that the White Book, if subclassified into hip-hop, could break into the top 25 hip-hop books on Amazon. And then let's compare it to an apples-to-apples independent. Finally, compare it to a book in the same independent class. Tupac Lives, The Death of Makaveli, The Resurrection of Tupac Amaru, Volume 1 by Draw Senative, is in the 2 millions. Draw Senative, if you spell it backwards, is hard evidence. Tupac is still relevant. 19 years later, Tupac is still one of the most interesting personalities in the world. For all of the people that have told you Tupac is dead, get over it, these numbers show that there are a lot of us still out there seeking the truth. I'll see you in 1982. I'm trying to figure out ways to step up the production value of these videos. If anyone would like to provide original celestial background music to go behind the narrations on future videos, get at me. This journey is getting deeper and deeper. I'm enjoying this ride tremendously. I hope you are too. As we get closer to present day, all of us will have a much better reference of the subject matter. So I'll see you in 1982.